Hello, greetings everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about theft. Theft is a word you're seeing a lot of recently. Combination of, that little pandemic thing combined with the federal government abdicating all responsibility has literally left tens of millions of people up against the wall. And you're starting to see stories appearing about how not only are food banks getting slammed with lines, miles long, but now you're starting to see a lot of theft in grocery stores, which, by the way, takes me to my first point today. If you're out shopping at a grocery store and you see somebody and they are, quote, stealing baby formula or food, and you're confused as to what you should do, here's the list, okay? Number 1, shut your fucking mouth and mind your own business. Number 2, if you have any questions, please see rule number 1. But I digress. That's not the actual theft I want to talk about. It's just the theft I heard a lot about that got me thinking about theft. And so I thought I would take a look at the biggest thieves in the world and just how much money they are currently stealing from you, the viewer. There you go. The biggest thieves in the world, the U.S. police. They've stolen $68 billion in the last 20 years from American citizens without due process. Yeah, of course. You think I was going to spend like 12 minutes bagging on mothers stealing food to feed their hungry kids? Are you new here? Seriously? Come on. No, the police, the state, the biggest thieves, the thieves of thieves, the thieves who coincidentally would have you believe that if you try to take away any of their funding, crime will run rampant. And then, you'll get things stolen from you because there won't be police around. The same police who stole $68 billion from y'all in the last 20 years. The nonprofit Institute for Justice has just released the 3rd edition of its Policing for Profit report, examining the abuses of civil asset forfeiture by local police across the United States. According to their data, local police departments have seized more than $68 billion worth of personal property without due process over the last 20 years. In fact, since 2014, police have been stealing more than actual burglars, and most of that came from people who were never convicted of a crime. And even though a lot of videos of this have been done and a lot of stories have been written about it, it continues to be a problem. Ergo, it is falling upon deaf ears. I wonder why. For those who don't know, civil forfeiture allows police to seize property on the mere suspicion that it is involved in criminal activity. Prosecutors can then forfeit or permanently keep the property without ever charging its owner with a crime. By contrast, criminal forfeiture requires prosecutors to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that an owner is guilty of a crime, and then, in the same proceeding, prove that the property is connected to the crime. So, why are we talking about civil asset forfeiture again? Well, because the police gave another shitty reason as to why they need it, and then another report came out showing that they were full of crap. Police say seizing property without trial helps keep crime down. A new study shows they're wrong. Now, yes, civil asset forfeiture actually had a purpose at one point. If I rob you and then take all your shit and I sell it at a pawn shop and the police catch me, they use civil asset forfeiture and they take the wad of cash in my pocket and they go back to you and they give you your money and go, hey, this guy stole all your shit. Here's the money he got for stealing your shit. You get your money back. Or let's say you arrest somebody who, runs a giant, let's say child trafficking ring out of an island somewhere south of Florida. And, you arrest them, you use civil asset forfeiture and you lock down their private plane and their bank accounts and you take possession of them so that person or their accomplices can't flee the country. Now, as with all things that humans create to implement into systems to control humans, because apparently humans think that humans are trash, so we should hire other humans to police the humans, and somehow that will be better. As with all the rules that get built into that system, this was once intended for a purpose, and then the police in the positions of power found a way to use it by taking everything from you and leaving you in a position where you can't get it back. Stop me if you've heard anything even remotely like this before in the last, 4,000 years of humanity and societal development. In 2015, New Mexico lawmakers unanimously passed a bill to all but end civil asset forfeiture, the process that lets police keep cash or property they seize, even if they never charge the owner with a crime, so long as they suspect that it's linked to criminal activity. High-profile lawsuits and press attention had prompted some states to re-examine their forfeiture laws. Law enforcement officials howled in outrage. What? How dare you take away a tool from us? This is a weapon of stopping crime. It is in no way a nefarious cash grab in which we steal money from people to buy cool shit for ourselves. We would never do that. We're the police. We're here to protect you. Well, not you, your stuff. Well, not really your stuff, just the house that your stuff is in, because a house is private property that's owned in conjunction between you and the state, and we work for the state and we actually only exist to protect state property. But I digress. In New Mexico, sheriffs and prosecutors implored the governor to veto the legislation. Eliminating civil forfeiture, they argued, would hand the bad guys a win and put public safety at risk. Quote, "You'll get less law enforcement," predicted the chair of the State Sheriff's Association, Ken Christensen. Don't threaten me with a good time there, Ken. He noted that police departments use forfeitures to help fund their budgets. Counterpoint to that statement, he just argued that sheriffs and police knowingly take your money to put in their own pockets. He literally just said the quiet part out loud. Why? Because after decades of this, they no longer give a fuck. They don't fear impunity. They don't fear rap. They don't fear the people. They don't fear legislation. They kill people willy-nilly in the streets. They take your shit and they have no fear. Why? Because 50% of the country goes out and buys Back the Blue flags and thanks people for their service while they're pulling over old ladies for driving 40 in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. Yeah, the police think they can get away with this shit because y'all constantly let them get away with this shit and support the institutions and people who make sure it happens. Criminal organizations would grow richer and more powerful, Christensen warned, if they got to hang on to the cash, cars, and property police could no longer seize from them. Yeah, the governor didn't believe it and signed the bill. You want to know what happened? You want to take a guess? 5 years after New Mexico effectively banned the process, those fears remain unrealized, according to a new study said to be published by the Institute for Justice, a public interest law firm that has been advocating for reforms to forfeiture laws. The predicted rise in crime and drop in arrests has not materialized, according to the study, which is based on an analysis of FBI crime data. Arrest and offense rates in New Mexico, the study found, remained essentially flat before and after the 2015 law went into effect. That's based on an examination of crime overall, as well as a specific set of offenses: drug possession, drug sales, and driving under the influence. Arrest and offense rates were also consistent with trends in two neighboring states, Colorado and Texas. Wait a minute, you're telling me that government agencies scream and whine when you threaten to defund them? And say, if you don't let us take people's money, crime will run rampant. Booga booga boo. And they scare the shit out. What? Would they do that just so they could have more money to buy more stuff and take more overtime and more vacations? Would police really do that? No. Nor are civil forfeitures key to cutting off the flow of millions of dollars to major fraudsters and criminal enterprises, as defenders of the practice often claim. Bernie Madoff, the notorious Ponzi schemer, was the principal example of the virtues of civil asset forfeiture in a 2017 op-ed in the Wall Street Journal by Rod Rosenstein, who was the second most senior official at the Justice Department at the time. He hailed the fact that $3.9 billion had been recovered and was being returned to Madoff's victims. Yes, once again, that does happen. There was a reason they did this. However, I'm pretty sure that sheriffs and police officers stopping people on the road, and when you take out your driver's license, they see you have $400 in your pocket, and they go back to the car and they run your license, and they come back and they tell you to step out of the car and empty your pockets onto the hood, and then they take your money, your keys, and all your shit, and they go, well, we had a report that there was illegal activity going on around here, and that the suspects were driving a car that matches the same description of your car. So what we're going to do is we're going to impound your vehicle and your possessions here on the hood of the card, and we're going to give you an evidence ticket. So this way, nothing crazy is going to happen to your stuff. And then, when we finish our criminal investigation, we will, of course, return your stuff to you post haste. And then the tow truck comes, and they take your shit and they drive off and they leave you on the side of the road. Somehow, I don't think that sort of activity is stopping criminal drug cartels from laundering money in New Mexico along the border. The median forfeiture averaged less than $1,300 across all the states where usable data was obtainable. In most of these states, half of cash seizures fell below $1,000. In Michigan, for example, half of all forfeitures of currency were worth less than $423. And in Pennsylvania, that median value was $369. Civil forfeitures, often used to target ordinary people stopped for minor infractions like traffic violations, where police purport to have a basis to suspect the money is connected in some kind of criminal act. Police have often seized people's cars after finding a small amount of marijuana or when a drug-sniffing dog indicated that the drugs were once present in a car. Police sometimes target family homes too. In 2013, prosecutors in Philadelphia sought to seize the houses of often lower-income residents simply because a child or other relative had sold small amounts of drugs while living there. This is a very, very important thing. This is the state using the police to extract billions of dollars of wealth from people who don't have the means to defend themselves from that wealth extraction. Now, of course, they'll use fear and boogaboo stories. Oh, the drug addicts are coming to take your stuff. Or there's a criminal enterprise operating on the corner. Yeah, this is why police murder people in the street in broad daylight with chokeholds. Eric Garner. Sorry, I had some fucking marketing police bullshit stuck in my throat. Where were we? Oh yeah, the cops are full of shit and will come up with any reason to kill you or take your crap. And then they put out a press release. And millions of people go out and echo whatever the fuck it is they say in the press release because they're such uncontrollable bootlickers that the second the boot hits the ground, they just drop. And they just can't help themselves. Just insert boot in mouth. Like, you're just supposed to lick it, right? You don't have to cram the whole fucking thing down your throat until you choke on it. But hey, I'm not going to kink shame. One incentive for police to target lower dollar seizures is that they're not worth challenging in court. The cost of hiring a lawyer and sometimes even the court filing fee may well exceed the amount of money at issue. The Institute for Justice found that in the 4 states that track such data, 1/5 or fewer of the people sought the return of their property. In Colorado, only 1% of forfeitures were challenged. Law enforcement directed the money mostly towards salaries, equipment, and other operational expenses. For some law enforcement agencies, forfeiture funds have accounted for as much as 20% of their budget and are sometimes used for seemingly non-essential purchases. A police department in Georgia, for example, once spent $227,000 on an armored personnel carrier, and a sheriff in New Mexico splashed out $4,600 for an awards banquet. Ooh, he was giving out participation trophies and gold stars. Gotta love it, huh? In one recent case, a suburban Atlanta sheriff spent $70,000 in forfeiture funds on a muscle car, a Dodge Charger Hellcat, that he uses solely to drive to and from work. The U.S. Justice Department called that purchase extravagant. Funny, where I come from, I call that theft. Unified opposition by law enforcement has limited and even scuttled reform efforts, and there's reason to believe the coming years may see police pursue civil forfeiture aggressively, because they haven't been pursuing it aggressively already in the last 20 years as they've extracted $68 billion from us. No. That was just like the warm-up. Activists protesting police brutality have pushed since this summer, with some success, to have cities reduce law enforcement funding, and state and city budgets nationwide are facing severe strain in the coming years, hit hard by the economic consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. Oh, really? You were hit hard. You know what's funny? I keep seeing 2 things every time I leave the house. Tons of cops and none of them wearing masks. So A, they don't give a shit about the pandemic, and B, it looks like they're all still working and all still getting paid, unlike the vast majority of Americans who have to sit in their house and not work and not get paid and not get any help from the federal government because fuck you, that's why. Quote, when the budgets tightened, the study found police tend to pursue civil asset forfeiture with greater vigor. That's right, if you speak out to your local government and say you want the police to have their budget lowered so you could spend that money on other things like, I don't know, feeding kids food at schools for lunch or some, crazy liberal bullshit like that. Yeah, it turns out every time you do that, the police just steal more money from everybody. They're like, oh, well, fuck you, we're the police. We're getting paid either way. Yeah, those aren't police. That's a fucking gang. Best I can tell you, everybody, is stay home, and hopefully they don't get desperate enough to break down your door and take the shit in your living room. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.